Dave Burkett, Detroit Free Press, here on Radio Row Super Bowl 59 with NFL Network star Cynthia Frelund and a Michigan native. I don't know if everyone out there knows that, but that's part of why I wanted to have you on here, because what a season for the Lions. I know you were probably expecting to see them here. A lot of people were, but I don't know.
I feel like I'm more happy about the type of season that we saw. That Vikings game was so special. To get the #1 seed with all of those defensive injuries was really special. And to see, I don't know, I'm more grateful and like happy than I am, sad that they're not here. Although I am very sad that they're not here. But overall, it was a heck of a season.
It was, people in Detroit were in mourning. I think they still are in a lot of ways because they didn't make it here. A lot of people, myself included, thought they would be here at various points throughout the year. Did you have Super Bowl aspirations for the Lions, and how did you deal with it, even if the season was okay when they lost?
So I'm gonna I don't want to break my arm patting myself on the back, but ahead of the season, my math was Eagles over Chiefs. So it could potentially still come true. It's hard to pick both teams. Like, I was pretty surprised that happened. But the hard part for me was I did forecast that the NFC North would be very good, and it ended up being very good. So not the Bears, but everyone else is very good. But ultimately, I did it. I did think I was hopeful, and I felt like that hope wasn't like, we've had Lions hope in the past where you're like, oh my God. Like, I remember Thanksgiving game against the Eagles, and like Calvin Johnson just went off. I'm like, we're going to the Super Bowl. But then it was the next week.
Yeah, it fell apart. But then you got into the math of it and you realize that probably not.
So. Doesn't matter. I still enjoyed that Thanksgiving quite a bit.
Your predictive analytics are amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Watch that on NFL Network. Everyone out there should follow that if you don't already. We'll get into some of that in a minute, but a little bit more about the Lions. You were at the Pro Bowl last week, and I hear you got a new fan, Brian Branch.
Well, first of all, Frank Ragnow is one of the funniest people that I've spoken to. Jared Goff couldn't be better. We talked about like the potential WNBA situation, like the fact he's my neighbor out in California, and which is pretty cool. And the fact that he's so invested in Detroit just feels so good. He's like just a good person. Like, you can't help but root for him. And I was like, did you know that at every college in Michigan, they were just like chanting your name at various points during the season? I'm like, how fun is that? Right? Like, this whole state is just the best. And then of course, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. Got a chance to interview him too, but Brian Branch is like my secret. Like, I would like to be like, I'd like to channel being that much of like a bad bleep.
Yeah,
because
we can say it here. I think badass, maybe.
Great. Well,
if not, they'll bleep it out. I don't know.
Bad bleep. So yeah. So I just have so much respect for his game, for the way that he approaches all of his different, all the different obligations, all the different training regimens. Like, everything he's doing is in preparation to be the best football player he can be. And it's cool to watch, and it's cool to see it, result in like him and Kirby. I like the two of them together. And I'm like, I was asking about, like, allegedly Terrion is the mouthpiece for Brian because Brian doesn't say as much.
That's true, very much. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what does he say? We just went through some silly stuff like that too, because I'm like, he's like, well, I say some stuff, and I'm like,
yeah,
do tell.
He is obviously on the field. I think all Lions fans know, the amount of plays that he makes, the amount of big hits that he is. But I'll tell you this too, in the locker room, we were talking his rookie year, early in his rookie year, I think it was his jersey was going to the Hall of Fame because he'd intercepted that pass and returned it for a touchdown against Mahomes, right? And I don't know, somehow it came up. I was the Hall of Fame voter. And I will tell you, the first thing he said to me was like, how do I get there? Like, his goals are immense, and obviously he plays that way. Like, he wants to wear a gold jacket one day.
I think that you shouldn't take the Pro Bowl too seriously. Some guy like Joe Burrow wanted back in the game, which you gotta love it. He's a gamer, but ultimately, he was like ready to get back training, ready to, like, he was kind of like, well, you have to like do these things. And then it's like 2 weeks and then I'm starting for the season already. And I'm like, yeah, all right, kid, whatever you think, like, all right, good for you.
All right. Another story. Cause I saw you at the playoffs last year. I think it was, you were in town for one of the games, and Tampa Bay game, Lions beat the Bucs in the playoffs. Everyone knows you were appeasing Lions fans at the bar across the street, right?
Yeah, we did game day morning from the bar across the street, and I was like, never before in my life have I like ever been like to strangers, I'm buying the whole bar a round of drinks, but I did, and I was anticipating like several $1,000s of a bill. And everyone was so kind. They got like the draft special. I'm like, I'm not trying to poison you guys. It was $800. I'm like, I was planning on, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I had expected being more, but how great are Lions? Like,
Hey,
that is
how great is that you would do that for Lions fans? So that was your celebratory mood. You were so
I was
happy.
so happy just to be there. And by the way, at Ford Field, people don't talk enough about that Bloody Mary you can get with the slider in it.
Is it amazing? I don't know. I've never.
It's incredible. Like, see, when you're a pregame type of girl, you can have the Bloody Mary with the slider in it during the game. I also cried at the end of that one. Do you remember, like, in the post-game room, you guys are all being so serious, and I'm like crying. Like, I'm so happy.
Yeah, I think we were sitting next to each other talking about your dog and how great it was that the Lions had finally won a couple playoff games.
And I was like, everyone's allowed to be happy. It's okay. He's not going to get mad at you.
Yeah. Okay, so about your predictive analytics, and again, Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network, do you have any models? I don't even know if you would have run anything like this, but the Lions are going to have 2 new coordinators. So I'm curious, I mean, the Eagles have a shot, I guess, to be the first team ever to win a Super Bowl with 2 new coordinators. What that means, how that might impact the team on the field.
Well, the good news is that there are a lot of returning players, and that continuity is super helpful. And getting everyone back from injury, hopefully very healthy, will be great. Now, the trade situation or the potential to pay free agents, that is also very fortunate. So you got to, in Brad Holmes we trust, we have to kind of remain in that mindset because there's no reason not to. And it will be interesting to see, like, the scheme and these players they know what they want to do. So perhaps we've reached that kind of tipping point where they can sort of dictate the plays they would like to do more than the coach imparting all of his wisdom and people adapting in that way.
And I think it helps, obviously, Kelvin Shepard. He's been a Lions assistant the past 4 seasons, obviously bringing Johnny Morton back. So a familiar face for the offense, and Jared Goff and some of those people. How about when it comes to trades? Because the talk around here a lot has been Myles Garrett sharing a table with Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland Plain Dealer right now. And, we're trying to work out a Lions-Browns trade right now with Myles Garrett. Does it matter? Is there any analytics that you've done that would tell you whether that is a good or bad move for a team like the Lions?
I mean, it would be a good move depending on what you give up for it, right? Like, I've seen some things on the internet, which is undefeated,
right?
With preposterous returns. I don't think 3 years of first round picks is going to really.
Not for a 30-year-old defensive end. Yeah.
It's just hamstrings the team too much. But I think there are ways to make it happen. There are opportunities to. I think you have to focus on the strategy. To me, I would start figuring out which of the defensive, like, are you bringing back? Is Aaron Glenn going to steal one former Buck? I don't know.
Might, right?
Seems like. Anyways, but that type of thing is, you got to build the whole thing. What the holistic view matters. Getting one player does not a team make. This is a team that's built in a holistic way. They are built in a way where, I had to educate a lot of people in the whole country about the fact that, the way the Pistons were built, where there wasn't this one guy who brought whatever, like there were 5 guys who were not.
It's a Detroit way with all sports,
exactly.
I guess.
So, but ultimately that's the way this team was built. So it'd be very hard to then change that structure at this point in the build and the rebuild and the way that everything's been going. So it would all depend on what the trade actually looked like. And I will guess that a team would probably be willing to give more than the Lions might, but where the Lions are picking, they could get a pretty nice edge rusher to add to the mix.
Yeah.
So the draft could be a way to achieve that and then keep some of the corners. That's where we have an advantage, because this is not a great O-line class. Great. Detroit doesn't need an O-lineman. This is a weird quarterback class, very flavory. Great. Detroit doesn't need a quarterback. This is not the best wide receiver class. Great. Like, you're going to get one from, you don't need a number one. You can get reinforcements through free agency. So it'll be the decision of what do you have to give up in order to enlist his services.
Pretty deep pass rusher class. So obviously the Lions could hit that. Couple last minutes here. I wanted to ask you about your career path, because obviously Okemos, if I read that right.
Yeah,
right?
Good
Okay,
job.
Okemos, yeah. So did you always grow up wanting to be in the NFL? I was the type of guy, like, I thought I was going to play in the NBA, right? I mean, given my massive stature, who could argue? But
who could argue?
I went to a camp one time, and I think I was in 10th grade, and Robert Tractor Trailer was there. And I saw him and I was like, all right, so I'm not going to the NBA. So then I was like, how else can I sort of stay involved with like sports and not work for a living? And kind of got my way into this. So tell me about your career path.
Yeah, I did a little bit the other way. Like I went to investment banking, and then I as I went to business school, and as a business school student does, you overestimate how the world's going to be when you graduate business school. And you're like, I could just go back to banking if I needed to. So I emailed the CFO of the NFL at the time, and, I convinced him to give me a job, and that's kind of how it took this direction. And then we took some weird paths left and right through strat planning at Disney, and then a stint at innovation in ESPN, and then Paul DePodesta gets hired by the Browns, and someone needs to talk about Moneyball for football, and it's harder to do than it sounds, right? So luck and saying yes to weird stuff, but also like I grew up right next to Michigan State. I mean, tailgates on Saturday, Lions football on Sunday. Like that was it, right? And
through and through a Lions fan, no doubt.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had I'd go to Meijer and I'd get like goldfish, and I'd name them Barry, always Barry Sanders. I had like 13 goldfish.
Is that right?
Barry. Yeah, all from Meijer. You know what I'm talking about? You like go back there and you're like, I need to chase one of those little tiny fish in the fish tanks. Do they still have that at Meijer?
Probably. They do by me. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, to be fair, they have everything at Meijer.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, absolutely.
If it's made, you can get it at Meijer.
In Michigan for sure. For those out of state who don't know about the Meijer experience, yeah. Meijer, you may have heard that one. Meijer's. They put the S on the end of it. Did the investment banking background, is that where the analytics and that certainly helps with
Yeah, I figured out how to code too. So it was like supercharging what I had started learning, like how to structure evaluating an investment decision. Should we invest in this? Should we buy the stock, et cetera? And then that's the structure of that helped create just a logical path. And that's how I really got into it.
Love it. That's great. Since that's what you major in, let's get a Super Bowl prediction. And since you nailed it coming into the season,
I know, isn't that
for
crazy?
Everyone out there who wants to know what's going to happen, pay attention to this right here.
I kind of can't believe it, but same model that picked the Eagles over the Chiefs ahead of the season picks the Eagles to beat the Chiefs, but just by 1 point. Now, my gut says something happens and Patrick Mahomes just like crushes that, but the Eagles, at least from all of the metrics that have tended to forecast for success,
that's what they're
would
telling
point
you.
to the Eagles.
See, as I watch it, in my head, it's like, how can you pick against Patrick Mahomes? But there's something that also tells me like the Eagles and the offense and maybe the Chiefs, the way they haven't scored. So I'm glad your analytics sort of support that.
It's so interesting because people are like, who's your pick for MVP? And I'm like, let's be not boring. So if you're looking for like an interesting upside MVP situation, like if you're downtown and you walk into one of those buildings that's quite large that I'm not allowed in because I'm an NFL employee, you might just take a little flyer on a Jalen Carter. Because think about it, like if he disrupts Patrick Mahomes so freaking much, it could be our 11th MVP that's a defensive player ever.
It's 11, huh?
We're only at 10 right now.
Yeah.
It'd be 11.
Wow.
There's been 33 quarterbacks, 8 wide receivers, 7 running backs, and 10 defensive players.
Look at that knowledge. That's amazing. And Jalen Carter's had an amazing year. Obviously, an excellent player.
Again, it's not the best. It's very long odds, but
for sure.
At least it's interesting.
But if you're playing it, maybe the odds are what you're playing there and trying to make a little bit of money. So
people are yelling behind us.
I know, right? Radio Row it's been a little wilder than normal for a Wednesday, but it's quieting down now, and I'll let you get out of there on that.
No,
but Cynthia Frelund, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having
all those
me.
Lions fans downtown. Next time she's buying shots, make sure you get something
get the
top
good stuff.
shelf.
I wasn't trying to poison anyone. Get the good stuff. I was happy to buy it. And Rory, I love you. Rory's the best mascot. It's not even close.
There you go. Cynthia Frelund, Dave Burkett, Detroit Free Press, Radio Row, Super Bowl 59.